Apparently, I'm just blind or something's wrong because I think this looks crooked. But according to these two, it's straight. So, all right, YouTube, if it comes out crooked, it's not my fault. What's going on? We're three guys being loud and ignorant. School bus.
Octo.
Luck Angel.
And in the background, we have my fiance who forgot to silence her phone. And today we're
Good job.
And today we're going to talk about, there's not really much going on in the news or gaming world. It's post E3 with the exception of the first couple days right after E3. You don't really hear any news for a couple months. So I want to go back and just do something random, and I want to talk about gaming franchises. And what I mean by gaming franchises, I mean those iconic games that have multiples in a series, 1, 2, 3 plus, but really define a console. Are they good? Are they bad? Are we tired of them? Do we want to see more new IPs rather than same old things?
You can't label it just generic like that. It really depends on what you're talking about. I mean, look at Mass Effect. Mass Effect was a huge franchise that spanned 3 games. You were able to make choices in all of them that affected the rest of them. So anything you did in 1 was going to affect 2, which was going to affect 3. And that was really revolutionary. Nothing else did that as far as Mass Effect did.
But see, and then you have Mass Effect, which originally was a huge defining factor for the Xbox.
Yes.
And then they went multi-console.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Still hated that decision too.
And why did you hate that decision?
Well, I thought the quality was lost when they went multi-console. Like the first Mass Effect, when it came out only for the 360, I thought it was one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen. And then Mass Effect 2 was also really good. Then when 3 came out, I didn't see any progression in terms of gameplay and presentation.
But if you look at Mass Effect 1 was really good when it first came out graphically, but it did not age well. And then when it went multi-platform, it aged better. I think Mass Effect 2 looks about as good as Mass Effect 3. And they wanted to do it that way. That way you don't put in Mass Effect 3 and be like, oh, why am I even playing Mass Effect 2 anymore?
Well, which console did you play Mass Effect 2?
I played it on the Xbox and the PC.
Okay, alright.
Well, see, okay, and what you're saying, now, you're saying that Mass Effect 3 didn't seem as developed as any of the other ones for you. Do you think that's due to multi-platform releases, or do you think that's due to just laziness on the developer's part?
I think that has more to do with multi-platform because because it takes them just as much time to make it on two consoles as it does.
That's not correct, because you got the multi-platform. The only thing they do is they have the developer make the game, and then there's small bits of code that allow it to work on a different platform. There's really not a huge thing to do.
But that still takes away time where they could focus on different aspects of the game.
What took away a lot of time for Mass Effect 3 was the multiplayer aspect, which the multiplayer aspect was really good, but if they wanted to be able to have a smooth multiplayer portion of the game, they had to make the graphics a little bit down in order to stream that across consoles.
Well, I mean, one can't agree to disagree on that, but I think we should move on to something.
Well, I mean, no, because this is exactly what I'm talking about, because this is just another franchise, and we can go from there to, like, God of War, a franchise that gradually gets better, but then you have Ascension who comes out, which is still graphically stunning and only on one console, but the addition of a multiplayer really takes away from that single player aspect.
I agree.
So now you have a franchise that you love, and it's feeling like it's missing something. And I'm not saying that God of War Ascension is not a good game.
No.
But it just doesn't feel like, it doesn't have the same presence that like God of War 3 had.
You went and you started playing God of War 1. If you played all of them, including the PSP games, you've got 1, 2, Origins Collection, which is going to be Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta. You've got 3. You're playing through, you've already gone backwards in Chains of Olympus. And then you finally get to the end in 3, they come out with Ascension, you're like, alright, I get to see what's happened after Kratos, because that ending just didn't make anybody feel good. And then they just go back again.
Yeah.
So it feels like I've already done that.
Well, you see, the problem I have with God of War is where's the room to expand?
Okay.
Because, I mean, they focused so much on Zeus and Ares that they really didn't have the opportunity to go even further and expand on the other gods. Because there's, in Greek mythology, there's so many different.
There's a lot of gods. Well, I should say there's a lot of demigods.
Demigods.
There's only a set amount of actual Olympic gods.
Yeah, and they covered all the major ones.
Right.
Now, granted, they didn't do so until God of War 3.
Right. God of War 3, they just threw every god at it.
But I do agree. But if you go off of the model for the original, like David Jaffe, who did God of War, the original director, his original vision, he didn't want to do the Kratos is Zeus' son storyline. Instead, he wanted to start expanding it, and Kratos was going to start fighting other gods. So it was going to be Norse gods and Egyptian gods, different things like that. I actually think that could have been semi-interesting, and I almost thought that they were going to do something like that with Ascension.
It could have been interesting, but I think the mesh of having all those different mythologies wouldn't have added anything to the story. If anything, it would have confused the player and been, okay, so we were Greek and now we're fighting Egyptian gods for some reason. And I like the way they did it.
I think that their issue was confusing the gamer in terms of the story, because I think they might have not been able to get the whole crossover.
Well, let's look at something completely different. Let's look at a franchise that isn't a trilogy. Let's look at something like Super Smash Brothers.
Okay.
That's a franchise, but it's not a storyline trilogy.
Yes, and Smash Brothers sells units
every time.
Everyone's extremely.
The next Smash Brothers is going to sell just as well as all the other ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, do we feel that they're just beating a dead horse with all these new Smash Brothers, or?
Everybody loves Smash Brothers. If you want to play a game where you're playing locally, you're having that kind of like a fighting game, but you're not having to mash a bunch of combos out, that's the game to do it in. Yeah. And it's just friendly, it's user friendly. But when they went from Melee to Brawl, a lot of people had issues with it because it no longer became as competitive in nature. It was all just about casual. And that's the worry with the next one. Are they going to go even more casual?
Yeah, or are they going to try to focus on the competitive aspect?
Right. Yeah, and I think it's mostly going to come down to is who is Nintendo really trying to target with it? Are they trying to just Are they trying to just get people to buy the game, or are they really trying to make a quality button mash game?
Well, I have to say that, and I'm happy with the way this conversation is going. It's going exactly the way I wanted it to, because you cannot talk about iconic gaming franchises without talking about Nintendo.
No.
I mean, you have Mario, you have Zelda, and Metroid. These are games that sell Nintendo units.
Right.
From back in the day.
From back in the day, yeah, but Star Fox.
When has Star Fox had an appearance in the last?
It has a nostalgia feel.
It does have a nostalgia feel. Just like when I go and turn on my PlayStation and I play like Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot. Oh, yeah. It has a nostalgia feel, but really they aren't heavy hitters anymore.
I agree with that. I mean,
and it's so many people on the internet are all saying, "Oh, this is what we want. This is what we want." But it's really funny because when they get it, they're not happy.
Yeah.
Because
nobody's ever happy when they get a game.
That's the internet.
Perfect example, Sly Cooper. Alright? I mean, people wanted a new Sly game for as long as I can remember. Who's played the new Sly Cooper game? You have all these great memories from your past games, and you're like, you know what? And you get frustrated with whatever you're playing, and you're like, this is exactly what I need. Yeah. And then you get it, and you're like, well, this isn't at all, and you realize that it doesn't hold up well.
Because the fact is, you have this nostalgia value, which is all memory, and that's all it is. As soon as you play, I went and bought the HD remixes of the Devil May Cry franchise, and I loved them as a kid. I played them all the time. I went back and played them when they came out in HD. I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. It's just going to be like I remember. And it just wasn't. It was the exact same game, but it just wasn't the same.
It's just not the same.
And it won't ever be the same. That's the problem.
So, maybe on this next generation, we want to see more new IPs than just rehashes of franchises.
And there
And I
will
think
be.
that's what Microsoft's trying to do 'cause with all those titles that they released at E3, and
I think you're going to see both sides. You're going to see Titanfall for the 360. You're going to see
Xbox One.
or the Xbox One. It's still in my head.
Yeah.
They're just all the same.
It's going to take a
It's
while to
all
get
the
used
same.
to.
no,
Xbox
Call it the
361.
one,
Yeah, the
now-
PlayStation 34. And that's got its own unique titles. But you've got stuff like Kingdom Hearts, which is going to be on both. And that's a big franchise. Everybody's been waiting for 3.
Oh,
and you know what's going to
I've been
happen?
waiting for 3.
Everyone's going to be like, I'm so happy that 3's out. And then you're going to go on the internet and see, this game was garbage.
Yeah.
No one's going to have anything bad to say about Kingdom Hearts 3 because it's taken so long, and it's going to have Vader in it.
Yeah.
Vader in Kingdom
It's-
Hearts. I'm happy.
It took so long. Just like Duke Nukem.
Different,
That's a
different
big
story.
franchise.
That's a different story.
And it took forever to come out.
Yeah, but that jump from developer to developer. This is stay with Square Enix.
That's why they
All
call it
the
Duke
time.
Nukem Forever, because it took forever to come out. Well, I still would like to see more new IPs rather than a lot of franchises.
Yeah.
But going to our news episode for this week, speaking of Nintendo, really can't have a news without talking about Nintendo sticking their foot in their mouths again, just
Again.
making horrible decisions. They
Was this
have,
the 10th time last month?
I don't know, the umpteenth time.
Ever since E3 started, Nintendo's just been racking themselves on the railing over and over again.
So now, not only can you not have any Nintendo gameplay footage on YouTube, but also EVO, which is the biggest fighting game tournament of the year, every year, cannot stream Smash Brothers Melee on its website because Nintendo's claiming copyright infringement.
Yet they're doing this to a group that raised $100,000 for cancer research.
Just to have their game featured, and now their game cannot be streamed.
Just for once, I wish Nintendo would just shut their mouth and make a good game.
And the funny thing is Nintendo can't go behind somebody and say, oh, it's not us, it's the publisher. Because they're the publisher.
They're the publisher, exactly.
It's all first party software.
And it doesn't make any sense to me because I can somewhat understand the YouTube because they cannot control what's in the video while people are playing their games and they don't want to give a negative interpretation of their video game. But this is EVO. This is a fighting game. It's a fighting game tournament. One of the best.
Yeah.
This is what Nintendo wants. They want people to see how their game is played in a competitive aspect. So to limit that, it doesn't make any sense.
Free advertising doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
Nobody wants
I think
free
you would want that
advertising.
publicity if you're Nintendo.
No, they got Mario.
Well, Nintendo, due to all your stupidity, I'm officially naming you an Ignant guy. Because you are ignorant, Nintendo. You make some ignorant decisions. Alright, YouTube, that's it for today. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe down below. Well, subscribe up there, like, comment below.
By the time this
don't
gets
know
on
who he
YouTube, it could change anyway.
Yeah. Especially if Nintendo has anything to
Oh,
say
yeah.
about it. We may get wiped for saying bad things about Nintendo.
Oh, God.
So hopefully you'll see us next time and we're not fined hundreds of dollars for saying something smart. Catch you later.